This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoyed the show and want it to continue, please sign up to give us $1 or $2 per episode over at patreon.com/geeks. And if you'd rather make a one-time contribution, you can do that via check or PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. And so I want to give a special thank you to Michael Drever and Emma, who both just signed up this week to support us on Patreon, and to Simon Young, who just made a one-time contribution to the show via PayPal. So big thanks again to everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate it. All right, so now let's get to our show.
Wired.com presents The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. And here is your host, David Barr Kirtley.
Hello, and welcome to episode 429 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. Today on the show, we'll be discussing the video game movies Doom, Wing Commander, Double Dragon, Hitman, and Max Payne. And this will involve spoilers for all of those movies, so just be aware of that. And we previously discussed video game movies and TV shows back in episodes 415, 421, and 423, so definitely check those out if you missed them. And I'm joined by 3 guests. So first up, we've got Erin Lindsey, making her 21st appearance on the show. She's the author of the Bloodbound series of epic fantasy novels, and the Nicholas Lenoir series of paranormal detective novels, which she writes under the name E.L. Tetensor. A Golden Grave, the latest novel in her Rose Gallagher series of historical mysteries, is out now. So, Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, 21. I'm officially legal on Geek's Guide to the Galaxy.
The next up, we've got Zach Chapman, making his 7th appearance on the show. His short fiction appears in Nature, Starship Sofa, Tales to Terrify, Steampunk Universe, and Writers of the Future, and he also edited the book Time Travel Tales, which includes stories by Catherine Wells, Sean Williams, and Robert Silverberg. So Zach, welcome to the show.
I think this is the part where I'm supposed to say thank you for having me, but we'll get to that. But thanks for having me, though.
And also joining us today is Blake J. Harris, making his 6th appearance on the show. He's the author of the nonfiction book The History of the Future, about virtual reality pioneer Palmer Luckey, and his video game history book Console Wars is currently being adapted for TV by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. His latest project is a book about Larry David, creator of Curb Your Enthusiasm and co-creator of Seinfeld. So Blake, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone, bad guy. I'm going to use that as my catchphrase from Lego Batman movie.
All right, yeah, so on this panel today, we're going to be talking about all video game movies that are below 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I apologize to everyone. I take full responsibility for this. But I just had so much fun doing our other panels. And there were just some movies still on the list that we hadn't gotten to where I was kind of curious to watch them or to talk about them. And so I appreciate you guys being good sports and watching these movies and still speaking to me.
There's just some things you can't walk back, Dave.
But so why don't we start off with Zach? And so Zach, just tell us how much experience did you have with the 5 games that these movies are based on?
Actually, I guess not a whole lot. Definitely less than all of the other podcasts up to this point. I hadn't even heard of. Well, I guess I'd heard of Wing Commander, but I just assumed that it was like a piloting sim, like a not science fiction piloting sim. And then obviously I looked into that, and it turns out to be this big science fiction-y thing, and Star Citizen and all these other science. It's a big science fiction epic. And then Max Payne, I played that. Played a little bit of Double Dragon. Played Hitman. I like Hitman, but I'm not like obsessive about those games like I have been in some of the past. I did play the last 2 Doom games, the 2016. I played the older Doom games, but I'm not like the demographic. I was a little bit too young for the original Doom series, but the reboot in 2016, I think it was, and then its sequel I've played, and I really, really like those games. It's like popcorn game. It's really, the gameplay is just insanely good and addictive, and it's just Like, you're just constantly wanting to like get power-ups and shoot things in the face and gore and heavy metal, and I really like those games. But yeah, I don't have like a huge history with really any of these.
I don't. It sounds like you're pretty familiar from what you just said. I mean, I think you know,
I was impressed.
Well, I mean, all those other games I'd like played and beat and like grew up with, but like,
all right,
man,
bragging, beating these games, play the
beat all these
completion.
games, dude. I'm a real gamer.
How about Erin? Had you played any of these before?
Well, so this is kind of funny. I played a lot of Doom, more than I am prepared to perhaps confess to. That was one of my most addictive games at a certain period of my life. So yes, a lot of that. I played a fair bit of Double Dragon. I had never heard of Max Payne or Hitman before the movies. But Wing Commander is a funny one because I thought up until last night when I watched it that I had never heard of it or played it. But as the movie went on, I had this memory just kind of unfurled itself of this sci-fi game that I played where he was either a wingman or a co-pilot or a gunner or something that was like a bipedal cat in a spacesuit.
Yeah, that's Wing Commander.
And I was like, I must have played this game. And I just don't remember all that much of it. I guess it didn't really sear itself into my consciousness, but it must have been sometime in the 90s. And so I went, kind of looked back on Wikipedia and stuff and tried to figure out which installment of Wing Commander that would have been. And I wasn't able to do that. But that was kind of funny for me because the first thing that clicked, I was like, Kilrathi is a word that sounds familiar to me. But right up until that moment, I would have told you flat out that I had never even heard of it, let alone played it.
Do you remember were the spaceships sprites or polygons?
Oh, I don't remember.
Was Mark Hamill in it?
Mark Hamill is a master of disguise with his voice, so I cannot say.
No, if it was Wing Commander 3 or 4, it actually has like full motion video where he's the star.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. It was fairly rudimentary is my memory of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it would have been in the 90s at some point. I feel like it must have been among the earlier iterations of the game.
It would have been 1 or 2 then, yeah.
And it kind of got all mixed up with, now I'm going to really date myself. Blake, you might be the only one with your expertise who knows this one, but did you ever play Stellar 7?
No, I'm sorry. I really wanted to be there for you in the old fogies wing of this thing.
Anyway,
but
it kind of reminded me of a slightly amped up version of that. But anyway, nobody looked that up.
How about Blake? How much experience did you have with these 5 games?
That was one of the first talkie video games. I had Double Dragon and Doom I feel somewhat of a connection to. What the character in the film, Carmack, and because Carmack was such a big part of the Oculus book, and it led me to research about Doom. So of course I had to start playing it again a few years ago when I was researching the book. But as I've mentioned on our other shows that are about the topic a bit, that I was never really and still not a first-person shooter guy. So that also has prevented me from playing a lot of popular games since the past 20 years. Though I do actually enjoy watching other people play who are talented at them, since I'm very bad at them. Yeah.
Well, I'll say, playing Doom 1 and 2 is basically what I did instead of going to high class in high school. So playing Doom and building levels for Doom was, I spent thousands and thousands of hours doing that. I didn't like Doom 3 at all, so I didn't play that one that much. But I did like Doom 2016, and I've played that on arcade mode for like hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I have played Doom Eternal, but I haven't beaten it yet. I played a lot of Double Dragon on the NES, and I loved Wing Commander 1, 2, and 3. Although 3 ran so slowly on my computer that it was basically unplayable, but I still spent hours and hours playing it. Although actually my favorite game in that series is actually Privateer, where you're like a Han Solo type character in the Wing Commander universe, where you have to like go, smuggle things and upgrade your ship with money. And I've never played Max Payne or Hitman.
But so if you played so much Wing Commander, does it sound familiar to you that at any point you had a Kilrathi ally? Or is that just them you can't?
There's this guy called Hobbs who was like a traitor, and he joined the Confederation. Probably, I think that was probably in Wing Commander 2. I don't remember if he was in Wing Commander 1 or not. I'm guessing it was Wing Commander 2 that you played, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It's been a long time.
So the gameplay of those, is it just you're just flying in a ship and there's no out of ship levels? There's no like you're walking around as a character.
Well, in between missions, you're in the base and you go around and you talk to people, and they give you a mission briefing. And so there's not like any like first person shooter parts or anything. But at the time, it was the most amazing cinematic game. Like you just couldn't believe how great it looked. And so, yeah, it really like raised the bar for the whole gaming industry. Everyone looked at it and it sold like crazy. It was super, super popular at the time. And everyone looked at it and they're like, oh crap, we have to like increase our budgets 5 times to compete with Wing Commander, because it was just so much better than any, you know, in terms of presentation, it was so much better than anything else at that time. And as Zach mentioned, Chris Roberts, who created the game, who also directed this movie, not one of his finer moments, but more recently he tried to pitch EA on bringing back Wing Commander, and they're like, nah, nobody would be interested in this. And so he took the same pitch video that he had made for a new Wing Commander game and crowdfunded it as Star Citizen and got like $200 million or something. So if you've been following Star Citizen at all, that's where that came from.
Yeah, how did that story end? Was he delivered on his crowdsourced?
We're all waiting. We're all waiting to find out.
Because that was like stuff I was working on with the Oculus book back in 2015. Because he was one of the first devs to say that he was going to, to commit to Oculus, and he did a panel at South by in 2013 and about how Star Citizen was coming to the Rift. But yeah, I guess we're waiting with bated breath. Look forward to it.
Yeah, well, everyone sort of makes fun of Star Citizen for being sort of infamous vaporware, but I've actually watched a lot of videos about the progress, and it looks pretty cool to me. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever come together, but I don't know.
I'm definitely rooting for it. I would like there to be a happy ending. So,
yeah. Zach, do you follow Star Citizen at all?
Yeah, I think I had a friend that worked for them. But yeah, I'm interested. But again, like, when is that supposed to come out? But it's very appealing, isn't it?
Well, they have been releasing like playable, like,
but isn't it
sections.
Like like a small, like a level? But isn't it? From my understanding, isn't it supposed to be like this really big interactive kind of MMO?
It's like an MMO,
where, yeah, where everyone has it, where it has its own economy, and it's just, I don't know. It seems like it's overpromised,
and people are like paying hundreds of dollars, if not more, for ships that are going to be eventually in the game and stuff like that. Yeah,
that just seems like a lot has been promised.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into these actual movies.
Well, if it's anything like the movie, then.
All right, let's get into these actual movies. So I'm gonna switch it up, and we're gonna go from best to worst, or like highest. Oh wait, no, we're not. But we're gonna start off with Doom anyway, because I'm afraid if we start off with Hitman or something, people are just gonna stop listening right off the bat. So let's start off with Doom. 2005, a solid 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. So just barely bad enough to be on this panel. So Erin, did you ever see this before? You have any?
No, I hadn't seen it before. I don't know what to tell you.
I want to see that in the poster of like the re-release. Just, I don't know what to tell you, Erin.
It's, so many of these movies that in this cycle for this podcast, I feel like are just, it's really, really hard not to link them in your head to better versions of exactly the same plot. And it's really hard not to, I guess the first thing that I would say about this is that I found it surprising that the whole hell angle had been completely dropped. And instead they go
funny you mentioned that.
Straight up Alien. Because, it's basically a regurgitation of Alien and a million others in terms of the bone structure, which is not that interesting in and of itself. I think if you're going to regurgitate a classic, you really need to sort of either do a really good job of it or just, say fuck it and make a Double Dragon style. I don't want to jump the queue here, but just like a shamelessly B movie from the gate kind of thing. And by casting Dwayne Johnson early in his acting career, I think maybe at some point they had that in mind. And then they bring in Carl Urban. And this is a head scratcher for me because these are two actors that I like. I like Dwayne Johnson more in comedic roles, but anyways, so it should have worked somehow, but it just didn't at all. I think the main reason it didn't for me is it kind of sucked all the creepiness out of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of, and I'm not a religious person at all, and I don't believe in demons and hell and all of that, but there's still a creepiness that brings, this idea that you're battling supernatural creatures, whereas this whole business of aliens that inject you with other aliens via their tongue is just, it's not interesting anymore. It's because it's always, it's always just going to draw your brain back to better movies than this one. There just wasn't anything original about it. The only thing that I liked about it, really liked, because it was so bad, was the last scene where Carl Urban, I can't remember his call sign. I can't remember any Reaper? Right. Yeah. Where he takes the super drug. And by the way, can I just interrupt myself to put in parentheses? I found it astonishing how many of these plot points are picked up across multiple movies. But anyway, so he takes the super drug at the end, and then the camera goes into first person shooter mode, and he gets the chainsaw and everything. It was so bad. It was so rad. I just loved everything about that whole sequence because it was so shamelessly awful.
Yeah,
and it was the only thing that actually reminded me of the game. It was the first moment where I was like, oh, Doom.
Yeah, well, let me say, because I actually saw this in the theater, and at the time I was, like as I said, I was really into Doom, and I had moved out to Austin, and my room, and it's roommates with my best friend from high school who'd gotten a job working with John Romero, and I was really, really into this whole thing. And so it was just a crushing disappointment for everyone involved when this movie came out. But I will say I've always, over all these intervening years, I did remember that first-person sequence as okay, that was pretty amazing. And it's so weird. They changed it so it's not demons from hell. Somehow they're on Mars and they're excavating some alien tomb basically, and it turns out that there were these aliens who developed a extra chromosome that would give them superpowers, but in evil people, it turned them into monsters. And the monsters, they did actually use the demon designs from Doom 3. But otherwise, it has, and they put the BFG in, one of the weapons from Doom. But other than that, it has pretty much no connection to the games. Zach, what'd you think of this Doom movie?
I hated it. It's too dark. I mean, from a technical standpoint, the lighting is garbage. You can never tell what's going on. So that just, if you're watching a screen where 95% of it's black, you can't there's no suspense or anything. So choppy editing, just from not even an acting standpoint, and that's not great either. It's just bad. So aside from, I can get, I kind of like the story and the setting. Not that it's it's extremely uninspired and it's just ripping off Aliens, everything that Erin said, but I can still kind of it's still familiar enough for me to kind of automatically start warming up to it. But everything is so awful. No one's likable. There's nothing to hold on to. And then it's just it's just choppy editing. Even the first person shooter scene, I was just maybe because I'm seeing this now. Now I had seen this when I was 15 or 16, but I had watched it on TBS or something. And I wasn't really paying attention, but when I watched it now, I was this first person shooter scene is terrible. It's it's even hard to tell.
It definitely is.
And it made me just want to watch a Let's Play of the new Doom games because those are fun to watch, and it's really intense and you're always on the edge of your seat. But yeah, this movie's not very good.
Can I just say one of the things that I find entertaining about that for me is to imagine the process where Carl Urban, and I haven't compared the timeline of this movie with where they are in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but where he's sitting with this script and is yeah, this seems legit.
No, but the thing is, Doom was so Doom was installed on more computers than Windows, at least, right. That's the claim. Like, I mean, so I can see, like, you would want to get in on this, you know, cultural phenomenon. This must have been after, because, like, this is 2005 and Fellowship of the Ring was 2001. So I think he would have been done filming Lord of the Rings by the time that he accepted this job, I think. But yeah, I want to get Blake in here. Blake, what do you think about all this?
So many thoughts. I like what Zach said. I feel like our criteria for, because these are not the greatest of movies, it should be like, would you recommend someone play the game or or watch a Let's Play or to watch the movie? So if you watch the movie, that means it's at least worthy of that. I mean, the first thing to echo what you guys have said, but like I always try to imagine like what was the pitch meeting that led to this, and I feel like whoever pitched it, you know, said it was described the movie, and they're like, you know, the studio's like, wow, we've seen that movie 50 times before, and they're like, yeah, but this one takes place in hell, and then it's like that's not what the movie is. Like, that's at least what made this unique. And the other thing that kind of occurs to me is, and this for most of the other movies we'll discuss, I'm probably going to harp on character or lack of character or making it more character based, but in this I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like what was so addictive and what was so memorable and what was so successful about Doom was the frenetic feel that you get, and just like the carnage, like that visceral hunting feeling. And like they almost should have not bothered so much with story, which I can't believe I'm saying, but like I feel like it should have been almost like a Saw situation where you just like wake up and like you're just like in this fight and it's like what's going on, and just to try to capture that pandemonium, which I felt like was how I remember the game, and you know there's a feeling to that. I don't really know what they were going for here, but they didn't succeed.
You're spot on there, Blake. I like one of the things that's so addictive about Doom is it gets your blood pumping. There is a lot of adrenaline involved in not getting splattered every 5 seconds, and just it's creepy and it's frenetic, as you say, and none of that was here. And I almost wonder, like, if it would have been better if one of those. This is going to sound a bit art house, but no dialogue.
No, I kind of think that's good. Like it should have been
actually no dialogue, and it's just you're dropped in the middle of this like a parachute, you know, paratrooper, and it's just like go try not to die, and he's just like trying not to die. It might not work. This might sound better in our heads than it would play out on screen.
No, I think that'd be cool. But what strikes me though is that this is so imitative of Aliens. I mean, and so many movies are so imitative of Aliens, but are so much worse than Aliens. And I just don't understand, like, even having the template of Aliens to go by, that they can't get even the basic stuff right.
But this was extreme, no?
Well, no. Let me finish though. But so, because in Aliens, it starts off and Sigourney Weaver meets the Space Marines, and they think she's some like spoiled rich girl, and she thinks they're all crude.
Right, and by the way, there should just be none of anything like that. Like there should be no slow scenes in this movie. This should have just been like.
No, wait. I'm with you, but let me just finish. Yeah. Let me just finish my point. So, and they think that, and she thinks that they're just like crude and you know, like insubordinate and all this stuff. And then throughout the course of the movie, like they come to understand each other and respect each other, and they form into a cohesive team, and they grow as characters, you know. And I feel like every movie that's come in the wake of Aliens has latched onto like, oh, like at the beginning, everyone's a total dickhead, and let's just do that. And they sort of miss the whole point that but the whole point is that the characters start to grow and respect each other. Like all these movies, it's just like the characters are like total fucking dicks at the beginning and they're total fucking dicks at the end, and it's just like not like who cares if they die, like, you know. So but no, I agree with you, Blake, that it should have, and Erin, this should have gone just like total like art house horror movie, like crazy.
I'd like to see like the Blair Witch Project version of this movie. I feel like that low budget, just like trying to create mood and the sensation of where are we, what's going on, would be so much better than every aspect of this.
Yeah. And it bugs me too that they don't even have the green armor, which is like, you know, like if you're gonna make a Doom movie, there should be some green armor in there somewhere.
This basically feels to me like, and you know, I get this happens all the time, but it's just they're taking some well-known IP and they're taking a sort of IKEA version of a well-known plot, and then they're casting some names that they're hoping are going to be big box office names just around the corner, and they just kind of hope for some alchemy that never arrives.
Right.
Like they just tack all these pieces together and just kind of hope it works.
Right. I will say that this is not Doom at all, but the idea I actually thought the one scene in this I thought had sort of a glimmer of life to it was the scene where Carl Urban's sister wants to inject him with the extra chromosome thing. And it's going to turn him into a super soldier if he's a good person, but it's going to turn him into a monster if he's a bad person. And he's saying, like, don't do it. I've done bad things. Like, I know I don't want to see what's going to happen to me. And she says, like, no, you're a good person. I know you. And I thought that, like, as an individual scene, I actually thought that was pretty good and pretty interesting. And the problem was, like, nothing else in the movie set that up or, you know, like, gave that any emotional resonance at all. But if they had built the whole movie around, like, leading up to that moment in a really intelligent, you know, emotional way, I think that actually could have been really interesting. Although still nothing really to do with Doom, but
yeah,
no, I agree. That was a good moment. They
didn't do the work on it, and they didn't do the work on anything.
Yeah, I like that idea of like, oh, it affects some genetics one way. If you're predisposed, if you have like a genetic code that's predisposed to aggression, it'll make you more aggressive and turn you into a monster. If you're like a passive person, it's going to turn you into a super soldier. That's a cool idea.
It's like the Sorting Hat kind of.
It's like Firefly, Serenity, the Reavers, Bueller. Yeah, got nothing here from you guys.
Wait, remind. Yeah, so the Reavers. I remember there was an experiment that went wrong and created the Reavers, but I don't remember a lot more beyond that.
It was that the super evil empire, which I can't remember the name of it, but the super evil empire decided that in order to create a perfect world, they created a drug they called the Pax that was supposed to make everyone peaceable, and they basically carpet bombed the planet with this gas, and so 99% of the population, or whatever the percentage was, the overwhelming majority, became so peaceful that they just like stopped eating and died in their chairs. And then the remainder who had like whatever predisposition became Reavers. They became absolutely psychotic and insanely violent. And the Reavers have been terrorizing the universe ever since.
I mean, that's cool lore.
It's too bad about Firefly because I feel like, sorry to get completely off topic, but I feel like it would have been so nice if we led up to that a little more slowly than we did. And, you know, it's great that the fans got their movie in Serenity, but I felt kind of robbed of all the in-between steps that would have led to that really interesting piece of lore.
All right, come on. We're 28 minutes in here. You can't start talking about good movies already.
Sorry.
Let's stick with the program here. But yeah, so Doom, obviously not good. One or two interesting ideas, but basically they took out the thing that made it Doom, which is the demons and the angry guy fighting the demons.
And Doom backwards, the mood. Yeah, so good. Like, I just imagine, like, the producer walking out after it's a flop, and he's like, what did I do wrong? And seeing the poster in reverse, and it's like, oh, the mood. I forgot to make it the mood of the game.
That is the best worst joke I've heard in so long.
All right, well, let's move on to Wing Commander. So let's see. So, Erin, you were saying, right, that you were watching this movie, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I did play this game?
I did play this game. I feel like I had a tiger in a spacesuit. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this movie. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but maybe because it was the last one, I just have been sort of pummeled into a state of submission, and it's fine. I thought it wasn't so bad. I think that the weirdest thing about this for me, it got some of the little stuff right. It was almost the opposite. In general, I think the problem with most of the films we're talking about today is they came up with generally paint by numbers, but at least workable bone structure for a plot. And then they just didn't do any of the work. They didn't hang any flesh on it. There's no characters. There's no attention to detail. There's no grace. There's nothing. This movie almost for me was the opposite in the sense that where it did well with small moments between characters, but it had no actual plot. It was, this interstellar space war, but you don't really know much about the space war. You don't really understand the world building and the lore behind it. And it basically revolves around what turns out to be a fairly meaningless battle.
Yeah.
in the middle of a giant war. And so there's no significance to anything, that you don't understand the stakes really. It felt like an episode or a few episodes in a Battlestar Galactica style series where all the beginning and the end is missing, and it's all middle. And so nothing really had any significance. And it's too bad, because I actually, in terms of, like I said, some of the detail stuff, as low budget as it was, I thought it wasn't too bad.
I agree. That's totally right about it feeling like the middle. This to me, it feels like it feels like they got like an hour in. They're like, oh, we need to make this like 90 minutes long. Like, and somebody's like, oh, well, I saw this movie once where they were in a submarine and they were dropping depth charges on them. And they're like, oh, that's good. We could stick that in. You know, it's like so much like random shit just got thrown into this. But like, Zach, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I 100% agree with the just characters and there's no plot. Like, when it ends, you will be shocked that it's over, because you're like, oh, that's just like a battle. You don't even see the bad guys, so I didn't have the context. Like I thought Wing Commander was not a sci-fi thing, and so when you finally actually see what the bad guys look like, it's like an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. They're just not there for so much of it, or they're like just a spaceship flying around. So it's all this like the main character, which is played by Freddie Prinze Jr. horribly, the worst acting of this bunch, which is crazy because he's still an actor, but like he's come a long way. He's still not a great actor, but it's incomprehensible how bad his acting is in this movie. But yeah, anyways, he's terrible, and it's just like developing his character and his backstory, which is like he's like he has pilgrim blood. He's like half pilgrim, half not, I guess, human, and pilgrims are like the first spacefaring human race. And then I guess they were in space, and then they kind of evolved to be their own spacefaring race, and they can like detect. They don't need maps, basically, and that's really interesting. Like, I like all that lore, but that's they're like the Navigators Guild from Dune, right? Like, yeah, but they're not in like fish tanks. They're just they look like normal people, I guess. Yeah, that is 100% not in the game at all, as far as I remember. Like, I don't remember it at all, and they never explained it very well. Yeah, like they explain sort of you get the sense that they're discriminated against, but I don't know. I admittedly was a little bit distracted for the info dump opening where it was like, and then the pilgrims went out into space and everything exploded. I don't know. I wasn't really listening to that part, so maybe I missed it. But I missed the part about why there's this animosity between humans and pilgrims. Like, so this business of Freddie Prinze Jr. being discriminated against as much as he is could have been interesting, except that I didn't really understand it. And that's the main conflict. That's actually, there's more of that conflict in this movie than there is true. Of like, the cat people. Cats in space.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point.
Space. And so it's mainly like them not trusting him, and then this guy with this French accent is like, you should trust him. I guess they're both navigators or whatever. I don't know. It's pretty not good, but I prefer it to Doom because at least it's got some interesting things. One thing that blew my mind is that this movie predates The Matrix by like 2 weeks, and it has bullet time in it. So that fucking blew my mind. I was like, whoa.
Really?
This movie.
What was it really? Yeah, 99, I guess.
The bullet time.
Bullet time either.
So you can actually just go to YouTube and look up bullet time Wing Commander or time splice Wing Commander. It's the same thing, but it's basically it's a half pan around a character while time is stopped, and it happens like 3 or 4 times in about 25 seconds in this movie when they go into like warp speed. And how they do it is they get 100 cameras, and all the cameras are spaced, they're staggered in a half circle around an actor. And the actor will do an action, and all the cameras will take a picture at the same time. So you get what appears to be a moving, the camera is moving while everyone is standing still. And they did this for The Matrix. And I think it was the same person that set up the camera rigging for The Matrix, but this actually, it's the same technique, and it predates The Matrix. I don't know if it was filmed before or not, but it came out before The Matrix, and I was like, well, that's really cool, and it looks cool. It's the guy who played Shaggy, Matthew Lillard, like he falls back and he spills water, and so there's water spilling everywhere, and it's a really cool scene. But that's the best scene in the movie, and you can just look it up on YouTube.
Didn't make much of an impression on me. Blake, what'd you think of Wing Commander?
Hold on, I'm getting a call from Matthew Lillard. He says he prefers to be known as the killer in Scream. Spoiler alert. I was kind of like digging what Erin was saying earlier. Like, I kind of feel like I was thinking that of all these 5 movies, if there was one that you said we had to watch all day for 24 hours, like this would probably be my choice. Like, I feel like there's the most like hanging out with them was more fun than the others on a relative scale. And I guess, I mean, guess who said this quote? Was it my wife or was it Freddie Prinze Jr.? I can't stand Wing Commander. I can't watch one scene of that movie. It was a piece of shit. I guess, I mean, he felt really, I don't think I disliked it as much as he did. Maybe just in comparison to watching the other movies. And I'm also like an underdog guy. So of all the 5 movies, this is the only one that actually was like a flop, even though I'm sure all of them would be considered, like, people probably think of them as very unsuccessful flops. Most of them, I think, actually made money. Maybe not Double Dragon, but that was a very low budget movie also. But like, this one was actually a flop. And I don't think I have much else to add.
Sorry, I did read that quote, and I kind of felt, I don't know Freddie Prinze Jr., but it kind of felt like he was trying to distance himself from a bad decision.
Well, he also, I mean, right. You left out the part where he says that he read the script and loved it, yep. And then they changed the script on him, which, I mean, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I did read somewhere that, you know, the Kilrathi were originally supposed to be in the movie a lot more, and just the special effects were so bad that they had to, like, cut out those scenes and sort of stitch the story together without it. And
well, the funny thing too is, like, I don't think Freddie Prinze Jr. is the best actor for this role. So him saying yes is like automatically made it not a good movie. So regardless of how good the script was, it was never going to be like a wise decision for him because he was in it.
This is one of the worst casting choices.
The movie suffers
because of it.
It does. I spent a distracting amount of time trying to reconcile him with the Iron Bull from Dragon Age. Because he voices the Iron Bull, and I'm pretty sure that, I mean, they've done something to his voice. They must have. But I just, anyways, that was distracting because I had to do something to distract me while he was talking. I couldn't really watch. I mean, he just, also, to be fair, sometimes it can be hard to sort of remove your previous associations with an actor, and he's just such a rom-com guy that I just couldn't quite square that circle.
Right. That's fair. That's kind of, I was a little disappointed. Like, I wish his quote was like, hey, you know, I've been doing these rom-com movies. I wanted to branch out. It didn't turn out how I expected, but, you know, I got to do this and that, as opposed to, like, trying to distance himself from this film that I don't think he helped with his performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
don't think it's a class move.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have in my notes here, I think the only scene that I kind of, like, woke up for a little bit was where Rosie died. And like the Shaggy guy was trying to, like, get to her, and everyone's like, no, she's beyond the force field. You can't go out there. That was the one part I was kind of like, I sort of like woke up from my stupor for a moment, and then I fell back asleep. But yeah,
I actually liked that whole storyline. I mean,
yeah, that was cool.
I didn't love it, but it was a storyline that felt real and felt human.
One of the only 2 female characters that they kill, and then they tease killing the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the first 20 minutes, I was like, are there female characters in this universe? And then the first woman that you see is just like someone that Matthew Lillard is, like, you know, goggling at and
lusting after.
Yeah, lusting after, and I think that's it. So it's 3 women, I think, total, and one of them doesn't have any lines. One of them gets killed, and one of them gets fake killed.
And yet, in my notes, this is one of the only movies of the whole deck that have any female characters with agency in them that aren't just disposable. That's
the lesson.
Huge problem for most of these movies. But yeah. I was going to wait for that one until we got
Well, actually, let me say, because I actually was surprised how bad this was compared to the games. And granted, my memories of the games are maybe like, rose tinged and everything. But I remember particularly Wing Commander 1 and 2 having more of a you feel more like you're a pilot in the Navy, and it's not just like a frat house or whatever. And I do remember in Wing Commander 3, which is where they started using live actors, there's sort of two women. There's Angel and there's like some mechanic. And the mechanic is actually played by an actual porn star. And so you do your missions and then you go back to base and talk to them. And they're like, oh, you're such a good pilot. Maybe I can show you how I can use my tools and stuff. And so as a teenager, you're like, oh my God, they cast an actual porn star in this game. The mind boggles at the possibilities, right? But I don't think there was actually, I don't think there's actually any sex scenes or anything.
That might not resonate with our listeners who grew up with the internet, because I know what you're talking about, where it's my God, porn is this very difficult thing to obtain, not something that you type 8 words in and then you're there.
So I don't know, maybe, so just thinking back on that, I'm like, yeah, maybe the games were more crass than I remember, but I remember them being more grown up than this, and that might just be not inaccurate memories, but I was surprised. I felt like this was more like Porky's or something than Commander.
I'm also shocked at the lack of the bad guys in this movie. You see them for maybe a total, when they're on screen, maybe a total of 2 minutes.
Which can work if you build to it, right?
Right.
If you turn that into a thing in and of itself. What I'm trying to remember, there's a couple of sci-fi movies that do that well, where you don't actually see the alien and the enemy until quite late in the film, and it's a shocking moment. You finally get to see it. Whereas this, they kind of just flash it in front of you. You're like, there it is.
And then they fall.
Do you think that was budget related?
And they fall over in a dumb way. It looks like recycled shots of him killing one. I replayed it, and it's not recycled, but they fall over in the exact same framing as three shots of that. And then you see they look like they have these little Wolverine claws for 1 second. It's what's that? And then he bum rushes the main character, and then, Freddie Prinze Jr. just shoots him dead.
A good example was Independence Day, right? That one,
yes, that's
you barely see it. They had the claw. You still don't even really know exactly what they look like. But yeah, it was scary as hell, and you don't see it till later.
Didn't Predator do that for a while? Isn't it quite... it's been so long since I've seen that movie, but I kind of feel like it's fairly late in the movie before you actually get a good look at the Predator.
Yeah, well, especially once its mask doesn't come off till the very end.
Yeah.
I will say, this, when it's actually in the ships and it's the first person view of the dogfighting and the guns shooting off and stuff, that I thought that was actually pretty good. And I was like, oh, I wish there was more of that in this movie, because it's Wing Commander. That's what I'm here for. But did everyone catch the Chris Roberts cameo toward the end? That was so hilarious.
I looked it up when I was reading about it. So.
As soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh my God, is that Chris Roberts? He's the guy, at the very end when Freddie Prinze Jr. gets rescued by the, I don't know, there's some random pilot who shows up and it's I'm here to rescue you! And that's Chris Roberts.
Isn't it strange that he would direct this movie? I think you mentioned that, but it doesn't seem like you could just transfer from being a video game developer or video game director into being
But like I said, Wing Commander 3 and 4, they had live actors. So and they were huge actors. I mean, it was Mark Hamill, Malcolm McDowell, John Rhys Davies. So he had experience filming Hollywood actors, and I think that was sort of his ambition at that time, was to become a director, because the games were moving more and more in that direction, to the point that I sort of felt the actual game kind of became an afterthought in Wing Commander 3. I don't know why it didn't work out or why it went as badly as it did, but yeah, something just didn't work here.
I'm thinking maybe I'm getting the benefit of that. I'm thinking it's like budget related because the fact that they said the script changed, which always happens, but like the fact you don't see the alien and it's not done in a very intelligent way, it reminds me of just like when you're trying to save costs because it was cost too much money for the having like fight scenes or the makeup and all that stuff, and then also the dog fights. Like that's like an easy win, and the fact that it's not as much in it as you'd expect for a movie called Wing Commander, I feel like they were really trying to stretch the dollar and. That was a big, obstacle here. Could be wrong, but
yeah,
it sounds like it.
I just feel like if the characters were just likable or like professional, intelligent, competent, like I feel like that's the biggest problem I have with the movie. It's just like they just seem like total jackass. Everyone seems like just like a total jackass, and it's kind of like I don't really care what happens to any of these people.
Pretty much. But shout out to the guy from Time Bandits who hasn't aged a day or hadn't aged a day between Time Bandits and that role. I was sure he was going to turn out to be the bad guy because he seems evil. But no, he was barely in the movie at all.
Which guy?
He was the Admiral.
Okay. I actually thought
was the Supreme Being from Time Bandit. Not the Supreme Being, the not Supreme Being, but the evil guy.
I actually thought the French guy wasn't bad. Like, I wish,
I've never seen him in anything else. He's totally unfamiliar.
Yeah, he was probably the one character I kind of liked. All right, but let's move on to Double Dragon. Blake, as our Nintendo expert here, what'd you think of Double Dragon?
My movie quote, my quote from the movie poster is just like, it is what it is. They didn't try to make a masterpiece here. I guess I respect them for not doing that. It's a low budget movie. It is, as someone had mentioned earlier, like very much a B movie and knows it going in. It gave me a vibe of Surf Ninjas, which may be good or bad. I mean, like I feel like this had nothing to do with the game. I didn't feel at all watching it the way I ever felt playing the game, and it may as well have just been named something else entirely.
Zach, what do you think of Double Dragon?
I love this movie.
I knew you were going to say that.
I really love this movie. So I saw this, like, parts of this movie when I was in high school, which was well after it had come out. And I was like, this looks pretty fucking cool. Because, like, I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2. And it's very much, I like Surf Ninjas. Like, I like those kinds of movies. And I also I like... It has this weird cyberpunk thing going on with it. And it kind of reminds me of that first chapter of Snow Crash, where like all the zany shit is happening and you're just trying to get a hold of like what the fuck is going on in the world. And there's like all of this, I don't know, satire, like everything is like gone to shit. It's pretty much post-apocalyptic. I think it takes place in 2007, which is probably like 15 years after the movie came out. But like the city is like completely, I guess it's like, what is it? New Las Vegas? Or
New Angeles.
New Angeles.
It's LA after the big one.
Yeah. And like, there's just like bad guys in the streets, and you got like a Ghostbusters vehicle with that flames shoot out of it. But there's like nice touches in this movie too that I think are funny. Like there's so much pollution in the water that there's a scene where someone like just scoops up water from the river and puts it in the engine of the boat to power the boat. And like my wife caught it and she's like, did they just do that? And I was like, what? And then later they even say that they're like, oh, the sludge is so bad it'll melt your skin off.
Yeah, well, the homeless people in their barrels of fire, they're pouring water in to keep the fire going. Yeah.
I don't know. I love it.
All right, well,
the fight scenes are pretty good.
All right, let me just say, Zach, I agree with you 100%. I could not believe how much I liked this movie. I'd never heard of it before. And I had very low expectations. But yeah, like, no, seriously, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1990s, one of my all-time favorite movies. And this was just like, it was exactly like that. And I totally agree with everything you're saying about the sort of like RoboCop style satire. And I also I loved, when I was in in the 90s, I was a huge fan of the TV show Party of Five. And so
Scott Wolf for the win.
Have Bailey come in. I mean, I don't believe he would ever like win any fight against anybody ever, but he's like so adorable, and it was just like so good to see him again. And yeah, I don't know. I just had I couldn't believe how much affection I had for this movie.
Well, I mean, there is some good stuff behind it. Like Paul Dini was the writer for it, and so was Peter Gold. Peter Gold is a co-creator of Better Call Saul and wrote a bunch of Breaking Bad. Paul Dini is a co-creator of Harley Quinn. He wrote, like, I mean, these people, especially Paul Dini, that dude's like my childhood. He did Batman the Animated Series, Adventures of Superman, Batman Beyond, a lot of the Looney Tunes stuff. He did some of Star Wars, Clone Wars stuff. The guy is like a prolific writer and a good writer. I mean, you can debate about that in this movie, but I mean, I have a huge, you know, and it helps that I saw this movie. We projected it. We went to a friend's backyard and we all stayed, you know, far away from each other with our masks on and watched this movie. And everyone enjoyed it. I enjoyed it
absolutely.
More than
This is a movie to watch, like with a bunch of people who are all just like laughing and having fun. Yeah.
And ideally a little bit high. And it's just it's a really I hated this movie. I mostly loved it. It's so terrible, but it's not trying to be anything else. And it had some of the most interesting ideas of any of the movies by far. I really liked what they did with their apocalyptic LA. It's just such a low budget movie. It's like Mad Max as made by your summer camp group. It's like,
That's great.
You've like cardboard cars and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, the gang members, there were moments of it that kind of reminded me of Tim Burton's Batman a little bit. With just the way some of the gang members were. I mean, the gang members, like, what are these gangs? Like, there's like the postmen and the mimes and like the assless chaps. I don't know what's going on over there. And it was so rad to see all of that. And but some of it I just couldn't even deal. Like the guy Bobo or whatever,
Bobo's fucking
he
awesome.
Looks like he's Captain Nutsack. He looks like a giant testicle strapped into a wrestling costume.
That's awesome.
Just like
what is not to like about what
happening?
Guys,
right
look up Bobo. Look at a screenshot right now, and you will know who won this argument. He looks amazing.
Captain Nutsack over there. So that was, I mean, just it's all of it is so bad that it's really good. But it reminded me too. You could tell straight away in terms of the fight scenes. You have Scott Wolf running around, Bailey running around, like being completely the most unconvincing Karate Kid in the history of ever. And then you can tell straight away the guy who's playing his brother is absolutely a martial artist.
Yeah.
All the way. And it's so weird to have this contrast. And you're like, how are they brothers? Let's not dig into it.
I love it. The Billy is just like throwing balls at people, knocking people over with like
gumballs.
Like doing little like funny bits, and then or you can just see that it's just clearly an actor that's a stunt performer, and then the other guy who's like this, you know, champion martial artist before he was cast in this movie, and then he went on to be in Brotherhood of the Wolf. He was the martial arts Native American in that movie. But yeah, it's clear between the two fighters. But yeah, I mean.
He was also in John Wick 3. He was, I think, the main bad guy in John Wick 3.
But I don't know. I bought them as brothers. I mean, my wife and her brother, they look more different than those two. So I'm like, I can buy it.
I was thinking more about like their partnership where they're supposed to be a team. And they're supposed to have grown up with exactly the same training. And you have Scott Wolf running around like, I tripped you with gumballs and banana peels. And then this other guy is like, you know, incredible martial artist. It's like, but they're on the same team. It's fine.
They kind of touch on it. It would have been cool if they touched on it like a little bit more. But in that first scene, Billy like kind of screws up the fight, and then his brother bails them out. I forget the name
Jimmy?
of the brother, but
Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah. But yeah, and then the T-1000 guy, the main bad guy. Oh my god, he's amazing.
He's so bad.
He's doing
and he's totally doing it on purpose.
Yeah, it's amazing, and he looks like Vanilla Ice from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but like a mustache twirling villain version, and it's
the goatee version. Yeah.
Oh my god, the goatee, the pompadour thing. It's like beautiful to watch.
The random chick with a whip. Why is she? Why?
Oh, she's terrible. Like, it was clear that she was hurting people on set with that whip because the way they were editing that, she had no idea what she was doing.
Well, let me just say, like, so Robert Patrick, right, who is the T-1000 in Terminator 2, is the villain in this, and this is 3 years after Terminator 2. Like, to give you, it's like really hard for me watching this not to like. This must be from like 1983 or something. No, this is from 1994. And she, you know that they're just like, oh well, in Terminator 2, Robert Patrick like changed shape and everything. Let's do the same thing here. Like, and everybody loved that.
So bad.
And just make it like 100 times cheaper and worse.
Special effects for his magic powers were just, I was like, what is even this supposed to be? He's Paper Man. He's black and white Paper Man. And he falls onto the ground like a piece of paper.
2-dimensional. That's his power. He turns 2-dimensional.
It's like something out of Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog.
I want to get Blake
superpower ever.
I want to get Blake back in here. Blake, any have we convinced you that this movie is actually more awesome than you initially thought?
I didn't give as much thought to the ideas behind it as I should have. Like, in the same way, I don't think it's fair that I'm such a big stan for Demolition Man, but not really, giving credit to this movie for its post-apocalyptic Los Angeles, and it is pretty interesting. I guess I didn't feel like it all worked as well, but I enjoyed watching it, largely because I like Scott Wolf.
Actually, let me mention some of the other world-building things that I thought were cool. They have vending machines where you can breathe oxygen because the air is so polluted.
That's very cool.
There's like electric windmill things on all the rooftops. I love to the part where they're like racing along the river and they go by the Hollywood sign because the Hollywood sign is now like at water level. And then actually I thought this was really good. So the dad, who's Alyssa Milano's dad, who's like the chief of police or something, mentions that they made this big initiative to get all the guns off the streets. And so it actually kind of explains why everyone's fighting on the streets, hand-to-hand combat and martial arts and everything, because they got rid of all the guns.
It's definitely a pro-Second Amendment movie.
There's also like a commercial in the middle of the movie randomly of like a house jacks to keep your house from caving in because the foundation is so shitty. There's been so many earthquakes. I thought that was kind of cool.
I loved that.
You know who would have really loved this movie is like 11-year-old Blake. Why did this not do better? Like, this totally would have been up my alley for sleepovers and stuff like that as a kid. I'm just surprised that I didn't really know that much about it until I was an adult. I mean, I liked the game, Double Dragon. I was a big fan of Party of Five. Scott Wolf was a very popular young actor. I wonder why it didn't, I guess maybe they didn't market it so much or didn't seem to capture the attention of
Scott Wolf is a great actor, and Party of Five is a great show. And one of the things that made me laugh the hardest was after their sensei, I can't remember her name, dies. They do this like close up of Scott Wolf with tears in his eyes, and I'm like, and going full Party of Five here. Give us the full Party of Five, Scott. We need to see the Bailey tears. Please just have sad Bailey face with the single man tear. We didn't quite get there, but he was like flexing his chops there for sure.
No, I had literally never heard that this movie existed before.
Like, how is that? Like, I feel there was so many less movies made back then, and I felt like I used to be aware of at least everything that came out, even if I didn't see it. Like, how did this slip through the cracks so much?
I mean, it got really, really panned. It's like 8% or something on Rotten. This is the lowest rated one, and for me, by far, I love it the most. I legitimately love this movie. And
this is way better. I think it's an absolute travesty for this to get less than 40%.
But do you think it would be different now? Like, back then when that movie came out, most of the critics were quote unquote serious critics in major media outlets. Right. And there wasn't this proliferation of blogs and sort of, various little geeky corners of the world that would kind of glory in this sort of thing the way that there are now. So I wonder if, I mean, because it's pretty clear that everybody totally missed the point. If you're not grading this movie on a curve, you're doing it wrong. Like it's not trying to be. It's the only one of these movies I feel that completely self-consciously leaned into its shittiness from the beginning. That's what it wanted to do. And if you're not taking that into account and realizing this is supposed to be a ridiculous ride, then it's like going in a fun house and expecting it to be a roller coaster. It's like, it's the wrong ride, dude. That's not what this is.
I mean, I don't want to oversell this movie. I mean, it could have been a lot better even being what it is. I mean, because like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie has everything that this has, but also has some genuinely like dramatic or emotional parts. And like the Mortal Kombat movie, I think, is clearly better than this. I mean, they're all kind of in the same vein, but this is just.
Sorry.
Wait, you think that the Mortal Kombat movie is worse than this?
I definitely do.
Wait, let me just finish my sentence. But I mean, this is fun, but it's like nothing other. It doesn't have anything going for it other than being fun. But it's pretty fun. But I mean, it needs some more like drama and or emotion or something in order for me to think it was,
I feel like the lockets really is like what threw me off. I just don't like those kinds of storylines. Like, if you're gonna have like a MacGuffin or like a big like stop the end of the world thing, like I don't know, like I just feel like it shouldn't. It just sets itself up for cheesy graphics and cheesy mythologies. I don't know.
Zach, what were you gonna say?
I've been thinking about this, like comparing it to Mortal Kombat and even to Street Fighter. But I grew up with Mortal Kombat. Like that was like in my DNA from like when I was very little. And I do think maybe this is a better movie. It's just that I have a lot of nostalgia for Mortal Kombat. This thing, I saw a little bit of it in high school and I thought like, oh, this looks really funny. But didn't, watch it with friends now. And I just think that there's like a lot more interesting ideas. There's a lot of stuff because Mortal Kombat doesn't really have those things that you're saying, like those deep emotional beats. So I think if you're just looking for a B movie, that doesn't have all of that turn your brain off, this is like maybe, it's one of those as good as it gets type of thing.
Yeah, I just think Mortal Kombat has like some better fight scenes, and like I like some of the darkness in the Mortal Kombat, like if they go to the dark world and stuff. Like I don't know. I mean, I didn't love it either, but I don't know.
It has a way bigger budget for sure. I think if this movie had a Mortal Kombat budget, I mean, we'd be talking about it. Like, well, other people would be talking about it.
Yeah, it definitely had that. You made it with your summer camp friends vibe for me, for sure.
This should get
super cheap.
This should be like it should get an Arrow re-release if they don't have one with like all the bonus features. I mean, this is something. There's so much to love. I feel like someone needs to go into this muck and like bring it up. This is a total cult classic. It should be.
Okay, wait, Zach. Since you're so much younger than I am, I got to ask you this. So, did you get the joke where the two henchmen put gum in their mouth at the same time?
No.
Okay. You got the like that their names are Huey and Lewis, and he says, "Huey, Lewis, any news?"
Yeah, I got that.
All right, so so obviously that's a reference to Huey Lewis in the News, the band. But so like when I was a kid, there was this gum called Doublemint gum. I don't know if it still exists, but the ads were like nonstop, where they would have hot twins popping Doublemint gum into their mouth at the same time, and the thing was like double your pleasure, double your fun. No way, that's a different one. No, is it? Now I'm
double your merriment with Doublemint gum. Yeah, that's Doublemint, right?
That's right. You got it right.
Yeah.
Right. With extra Doublemint gum. Is that what it's? Yeah, but anyway, so that's what that. I just want to for the kids. I just want to explain that joke. I also thought it was kind of cool. So at the end, Robert Patrick possesses Jimmy Lee's body, and he and his brother fight each other, which I thought was a nice nod to the arcade game where it's a 2-player co-op game. But then if you beat it, the 2 players have to fight each other to see who gets the girl at the end. So I thought it was nice they stuck that in there.
I appreciated that they avoided that they were fighting for the girl, though. Because that would have made me cranky.
No, but just that they had the brothers fight, I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah. And that's like one of the only things that was like the game. The only other thing that made me think of the game is at the end when they get the outfits, and then immediately Billy is like, these outfits suck. I don't want to wear these outfits.
Yeah, but I mean, some of the, like, Abobo is from the game, and the Linda who picks up the whips is from the game. Yeah. I mean, there were.
Oh yeah, no, they're like, yeah. I remembered the girl with the whip from the game, actually. It's which I guess answers my question about why she's actually there, but.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to Hitman and Max Payne. I'm kind of gonna like combine these two because like I can't keep them straight in my head no matter how hard I try.
I can make Hitman very straight for you. Here was the pitch. Hey, remember that movie Dave? What if Dave was evil and wanted to take over, like the Russian guy who wants to become president? I think that was how they built the story there. Someone watching Dave thinking, what would a sinister Dave do? Or they were watching Burn Notes. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, so Zach, I think you were the only one here who had actually played these games.
Yeah, so Max Payne is just like a third-person shooter. I don't remember it being like particularly like about. There's a lot of this imagery with like demons and demons doing things in this movie. I don't remember that being in the game. It's like a kind of like a neo-noir like this movie. And then Hitman is just like, at least the current ones that I've played, it's kind of like a sandbox, and you have missions. You got like 20 minutes to kill a guy, and then there's a bunch of different missions, but it's kind of like, yeah, and there's different ways to kill someone. You know, you could just shoot them, or you can poison them, or like in one example, you can do like really interesting setups to kill someone. Like if someone's like a robot developer, you can hack their robot, and when they're giving a presentation, all this stuff's happening real time, right? When you start the level, so you might have to like race over to a certain part of the level. They're really large. You go over while they're giving their presentation, you hack their robot. It's like a defense robot, and then you get it to shoot them and kill them, so it looks like they killed themselves. There's all kinds of different, you set up like a Rube Goldberg death thing if you want to get that achievement or whatever. Well, so there's all kinds of different ways to kill people. But this is just shooting people.
Let me say, Zach. So I did a little bit of research, and based on my research, this is the story of Hitman. There's like the ultimate assassin. He was cloned from the DNA of 5 different soldiers to create the ultimate soldier. They tried 47 times, and the 47th attempt was successful, and that's why he's Agent 47. And then there was a falling out among the 5 people who created him, and one of them sets him loose with instructions to kill the other 4. And he operates mostly by disguising himself and by dragging bodies around to hide them after he disables them, which all sounds pretty cool to me, none of which is in this movie at all. Like, at all.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're giving this gaming franchise like a bit more of it. I mean, that sounds interesting, but from what I play, it's just, you're just it's just like an open world, like assassination missions. Like the storylines really takes a back seat for like you kind of exploring the different ways to kill people. That's like the fun part of it. It's not the story. But yeah, you are like you'll knock someone out and like bring them into a closet and then swap your clothes and like, go. But yeah, it's just like this guy. That I guess that kind of happens in this movie. You don't really see it. Like he does do the old costume swap, I think twice. But like he's got fucking barcodes on the back of his bald head. Like he's super. It's just very apparent wherever this guy is. He's not incognito at any time.
One of the first things that occurred to me, I'm like, how are they not finding him instantly?
and he walks around like in a fucking suit all the
Never
time
wears
with
a
his
ball
bald as
cap,
fuck
like,
head.
No ball cap, like nothing.
Yeah. So Aaron, I think you mentioned in an earlier panel that Timothy Oliphant is. A favorite actor of yours?
I didn't say he was a favorite actor. I said he was a favorite face. I like him a lot in Justified. I liked him in Deadwood. I have seen things I've liked him in. And, I spent a lot of time thinking about, particularly with regard to Hitman, but also to some extent with regard to Max Payne, like, what is it about these that are so bad? And there are a lot of answers to the question. But some of it is a little bit hard to put your finger on. Like the setup for Hitman, that he's, got this barcode and he works for the big secret agency. And he starts off, he's doing hits in Niger for some reason, but then you've got the Interpol guys running around. Anyway, all of that, it's all absurd and bears no resemblance to the real world. And yet that's not the problem with it at all for me, because if you think about a movie like John Wick, the frame, the world building is silly on its face, but that's not really the point. So why does John Wick work and work really well, at least for me? And why does this not work? And actually, Timothy Olyphant would be a solid choice if you're trying to, like, Keanu Reeves does this deadpan thing with a slight wink. Timothy Olyphant is great at that. It's a solid choice. It should work. And it totally doesn't at all.
It's because he doesn't have any hair, Erin. Timothy Olyphant is a hair actor. Even now, his hair is just glorious.
I know.
When you cut it off, he loses all his power.
It's true. It's true. He's no longer the beautiful creature that he is in some other shows.
He's basically the Samson of
exactly
action movies.
But it's funny because I think both Max Payne and Hitman are really good examples of what sort of the inverse of what I was talking about before, where like the bone structure, there's nothing particularly wrong with it, but there's so little attention to detail. There's no love put into these movies. You don't have, like, if you compare the fight scenes with John Wick or with the Jason Bourne movies, with the newer Bond movies, you don't have to have a big budget flashy thing. And can we please put a moratorium on samurai swords? Please. Can there just be no more fucking katanas for a while? Anyway, just in brackets. Like the scene where they're all fighting with all the dudes and they decide to fight on the subway with katanas. Like, if you're going to go that route, you better make it awesome. And it just wasn't awesome. And I didn't feel the love of anybody involved with these projects in giving them any soul or any flash or anything in between the spaces.
Blake, what'd you think of these movies?
Yeah, I like Erin's analysis. Not only the analysis, but just her trying to reverse engineer, like what is wrong with these movies. Like on paper, they don't sound any worse than a typical action movie, one that could be good or bad. And I think it is like the characters and the human relationships. And like one thing I was thinking just for watching Max Payne, I felt like it's a revenge movie, but I thought it'd just be like a lot more interesting if it wasn't his wife and his child that died. The child to be alive, so that makes such an interesting situation. He's sort of conflicted between the past and trying to get revenge and trying to move forward. I don't know. I feel like they take themselves too seriously, and I like the idea of there not being enough love put in.
Yeah, well, I think one huge problem with both of them is that the plots are so needlessly complicated. Like with Hitman, I forget which one it was. I had to actually sit down and write down what the plot was, and it's like this is not a movie where I should be having to struggle to think wait, what is the plot of this movie?
No, you're right. But even Born Identity, I feel like the first time I watched it, maybe I just wasn't paying full attention. Like a lot, I kind of didn't really know what was going on, but at least I understood the motivation for every scene, and I understood I like the characters in it.
No, but Born Identity, this is my point though, is that Born Identity, or actually I think Born Supremacy is a lot better, but it delivers on the action. Neither of these deliver on the action. So much time is taken up with peripheral characters who have nothing to do and unbelievably complicated, plot machinations that there's no time left over for actual, like Max Payne. I haven't played it, but I know the whole point of the game is you jump through the air and time slows down and you shoot a bunch of people. And there's two shots or something in this movie where anything like that happens. And the rest of it is this just boring paint by numbers detective story that's such a low rent Sin City.
And it should have worked because, again, like Mark Wahlberg is a good actor. I think he's a good actor. Look,
I agree. I think he's a good actor.
I agree with that.
I think he's a good actor, and I think he has chops that certainly are at least up to delivering on a film like this. And yet he mumbles through the whole thing. There's only so much you can do, to be fair, with the dialogue. In both of these movies, the dialogue is just like, and they both have the same disposable Russian woman in them. And I was just like, oh man, seriously? Like, not only do they have a disposable Russian woman, it's literally the same disposable Russian woman.
And she like takes her shirt off and is like, have sex with me.
That's
and then the guy's like, no, maybe I don't feel like it. And it's just like, actually, that was actually one of my biggest problems with Hitman. Was like, is he asexual, or does he just like take his mission so seriously he never has sex with? Like, it was like, that was like the one thing I was kind of like, wait, like there was something potentially interesting about the character there, but it's just like the writing is so weird. Like, there's this scene where they're driving in the car together, and she's like talking, and he's like, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna like wrap a cord around your neck and put a bullet in your head. And she just like smiles like,
and she's like,
oh,
okay.
We're really connecting here. Like, it's so weird.
Dude, and then, so she wants to have sex with him and he doesn't want to have sex with her. So he jabs a needle in her and puts her to sleep. And the next morning she's like, hey, what's up? She's totally fine with it. It's the worst.
That was like the best scene in the whole movie. She was trying to non-con him, and he was like, get the fuck off of me. And then she kept trying, and then he was like, all right, go to sleep.
So fine if he does that, but then can we just agree she's not going to be okay with it the next day?
Yeah.
Probably.
I don't think the writers really cared about her character.
Do you think, Zach?
I don't think they were thinking about what her motivation was, or maybe how things in this movie would affect her.
I mean, this movie, like, if you're going to give this one a gender score, it's going to get like 2% on this Rotten Tomatoes. It is the fucking worst of the batch. And none of them were great, but this one was the worst of the batch.
Max Payne was worse. I thought Max Payne was the worst.
From a gender perspective?
From an everything perspective, including I mean, at least that, I don't know. They're both bad, but yeah.
I don't know. Disposable Russian Girl was a problem in both of them for sure, but just the way she's dealt with in Hitman, where she's just totally fine with all the abuse and it's A-okay, is it's infuriating.
But they just kill her off in Max Payne like 5 minutes into the movie.
They do, and that's awful. But you know what? She's probably not okay with it.
Yeah.
Do you know? She just wants to come back for more because that's what bad girls like. Fuck off.
All right, let me see if I can come up with anything I liked about these movies. Wait. So Zach mentions the like Valkyrie hallucinations. I actually thought those were pretty cool. I really liked the shot where the guy like gets pulled backward out the window by the Valkyrie.
Yeah, I like that one too. But I legit thought that was real.
It's so confusing and anachronistic to everything else that's going on that it just fueled my rage for this movie even more. Like, because that it looks kind of cool and that it's interesting, it just feels like it's in there because of that. They're like, well, what? Let's just do something that looks cool here. It's like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Nothing's dragging him out of the wall. He just fell backwards. But for some reason, it's like, huh?
It's in the trailer, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking aloud, like, while you were talking, I bet you that's the whole reason that scene exists, is so they could put it in the trailer and someone would watch the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if they had, and it doesn't make any sense because we eventually find out that these people are just hallucinating because they're taking this drug. And it doesn't make any sense to me that they're all having the same hallucinations.
Yes.
But so I wish there had been some implication that like somehow this drug allows you to see like some other layer of reality or something. Like at least somebody should like raise that possibility so that there's some explanation for why there's this consistency to this fantastical imagery.
It's not really possible I think it's possible to enjoy any of these movies if you're the type of person, and I dearly wish that I was, if you're the type of person who can shut off the the why questions and the like, you need it to make sense. Like if you don't sit there and obsess about that's not how the NYPD works, that's not how Interpol works, that's not how gravity works. If you can shut that off, I think it's possible to enjoy these films as very, and we keep saying it, paint by numbers action films. But if you need things to make sense, it's just especially Hitman and Max Payne for me, both of those, it's just a rapid fire, one after the other. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And it just becomes exhausting to watch.
All right, I want to get Blake back in here, but first I just want to note my biggest plausibility issue with Max Payne. There are no bathrooms on New York City subway platforms.
I totally knew you were going to say that.
Not
Let alone
ever going to happen.
Nice big bathrooms with multiple sinks
then the bathroom when they go inside
and it's clean.
And the bathroom is wider than the entire platform. All right, but Blake, what do you think?
I was hung up on this. I was curious what you guys thought on the reason for killing Mark Wahlberg's wife. I felt like, I don't know, couldn't there have been some other solution? And then, like, did this movie really have to happen? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's what happens in the game. I mean, so I think they kind of had to do that.
All right, so my issue is with the devs. Okay. But yeah. It was kind of like, it reminded me of Monk, and I realized the TV show has many advantages that these movies don't, where they have to wrap it up at 90 minutes. But, like, after, like, 9 seasons of trying to figure out who killed Trudy, and, like, I don't know, her death was, like, not that interesting or related to him. Or his investigation. I don't know. I just that sort of bummed me out as a reason, because I thought the story stuff, while convoluted, was at least pretty interesting, and I didn't think that was a good enough reason, and therefore to set the movie into motion.
With you, and I mean, I've talked about it on the show before, but it's like it's such a lazy way of catalyzing the protagonist's action. It's like kind of so many writers' go-to thing. It's like, we killed their woman, or we raped their woman, or we did something.
Right.
And it does go both ways to some degree. And it's tiresome whether it's the male or the female character that gets offed to catalyze the action, but it feels really lazy.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say something good about my one thing I have here that I liked about Hitman was the scene where he there's like a shootout in a hotel where he like reaches into the ice box and pulls out 2 guns and he's killing people. That was because I actually saw this in theaters. I don't know why, but and that was the one part that I actually remembered. And it's like, but the thing is, Erin's saying like you would only want to watch this movie if you can blah blah blah. But it's like, if you're like tempted to watch Hitman, just watch Born Supremacy, and if you're tempted to watch Max Payne, just watch Sin City. And like they don't, and if you're tempted to watch Doom, just watch Aliens. Like they don't offer anything over the things that they're trying to imitate.
I guess that makes a good case for why Double Dragon was the most liked amongst you guys, and why I probably overlooked it. That like it was its own thing, Yeah, it's weird, and maybe I would say watch Demolition Man instead. But like, at least it seemed to mostly succeed at what it wanted to be. And these other movies, you're right, they're just lesser versions of better films.
Yeah, I guess like I totally agree with you. Double Dragon had its own identity, and Wing Commander sort of did too. Like, there's no movie where I can say, oh, you should just watch this. Wing Commander is just a shittier version of it. I mean, it's kind of like Star Wars or whatever. But if Wing Commander were better, I mean, I would maybe say it had its own identity.
I think the closest analogy for me would be Battlestar Galactica, but like the middle episodes, except not as good.
Yeah, but this was before. You're talking about the reboot series, right?
Yeah.
Because this is before that. So,
is it? When was Wing Commander?
This is 99.
Oh wow, it is really that old. But yeah, anyway, it's Battlestar Galactica. I don't know how much resemblance the storyline bore to the original show because I never watched the original show. So I'm not necessarily going to hold it up as it's a particularly original piece of work. But I think I still feel like the pilot of that Battlestar Galactica reboot is one of the most interesting and fun things I've seen on television in a long time. Now, admittedly, I have to say that I was binge watching it with subtitles in Pakistan on lockdown, and it was clearly filmed by somebody's hand cam. So all to say, my standards were not super high at the time. It was the only entertainment I could get. So I don't know. I might experience it differently, but I recall really being impressed with it.
No, the first few seasons of the Battlestar Galactica reboot were amazing. Absolutely. But we're not talking about good stuff here. We're talking about
that's right.
less than 20%. Zach, any other thoughts here?
On Max Payne and
or I don't know, just
spy
anything. I mean, we're pretty close to the end here, so
yeah, it's really hard to. I think you, Dave, did a really good summary of these are just less than versions of great movies. You know, watch John Wick if you want an action movie. Watch Alien or Aliens if you want to. You know, if Doom is your thing, and Wing Commanders. I mean, just watch Star Wars. But yeah, and definitely watch Double Dragon because it's just legitimately, I just have a lot of fun with it, and I want it should be a cult classic. I know I'm just like going off on how much I love this movie, but it's really fun. It seems like people enjoyed making the movie. There's like this kind of synergy, this chemistry.
There's love.
That's not anywhere. Yeah, there's love. There's none of that in any of these other movies.
No, especially Max Payne felt so dour.
I wrote dour twice on my notes for Max Payne and terrible twice. But definitely don't watch Max Payne under any circumstances. For me, that was by far the worst one. It's just ugly to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like Scott Wolf brings so much to Double Dragon because he's so charismatic and he just seems like he's having fun. And in contrast to, like Mark Wahlberg feels like he's just collecting a paycheck. And I don't know if you saw this thing about Timothy Olyphant. Olyphant stated on the Nerdist podcast that he had no interest in returning for a sequel and only did the original film in order to pay for his new house following the sudden cancellation of Deadwood. So he obviously didn't give a crap, you know, like, so I think, yeah, the takeaway here is that Double Dragon, it's like the kind of movie again to like watch with your friends and like have a good time, like laughing at how over the top it is.
I feel like it would be so rad if they did action figures. Like, would you not want the Captain Nutsack action figure?
I want Bobo.
The Jimmy and Billy action figures. That'd be so good.
I mean, it looks like this is the type of movie where it looks like they were going for that. Like they wanted to have action figures made. I want the T-1000 with the, you know, Vanilla Ice Pompadour. I want that action figure. And then I want like a little 2D version of him as well.
Or yeah, you could just pull it out like a card from the middle of the figure.
Yeah.
We should design these. This is a Kickstarter project waiting to happen.
Kickstarter, yeah, and it comes with the release too, the re-release of this on Blu-ray on 4K.
But yeah, so in my planning email, you know, I had mentioned that the possibility of doing because this is going to be bad video game movies, the possibility of doing very bad video game movies, but I just don't think it's going to work. I mean, I'm looking at the list here. And it's like that we haven't covered in the under 20% category. We've got Alone in the Dark, 1%, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, 2%, House of the Dead, 3%, In the Name of the King, A Dungeon Siege Tale, 4%, which actually I can't find any way to actually watch. Blood Rain, 4%, Street Fighter, The Legend of Chun-Li, 5%, Silent Hill Revelation, 8%, Hitman, Agent 47, 9%, Postal, 9%, and...
Let's do a below 10%. We did below 20.
I just don't know because mostly now it's like sequels to movies that I don't know.
Plus, like at a certain point, how much can you chew your cud on this one? Like, is there anything left to say about bad movies that we haven't already covered?
Well, we found a gem here, didn't we? We'll find. Maybe Blood Rain will be an
interesting point.
No,
you don't know what you're going to get.
Zach, why don't you watch these movies and report back to us on whether?
Exactly.
I already have too much. I've suffered too much brain damage from this watching these movies.
My God, I couldn't even find. Dave will tell you, Wing Commander isn't even available in Canada on like any format. I had to use my husband's sneaky VPN that he uses to watch European football.
I can only assume that was some sort of national defense initiative on the part of the Canadian government to keep the infection from spreading northward.
Could be.
Well, but we appreciate you, Erin, going to such lengths to watch
you.
Wing Commander.
And I actually, like I said, I half-assed liked that movie. I mean, not liked it, but I had more fun. It's possible to have fun watching it because there are scenes in it that are fun. There are moments. Whereas, yeah, a couple of these movies, it's just not possible to enjoy them, I don't think.
Well, there's people interacting like humans in Double Dragon and in Wing Commander. Like the other movies, everyone is very dour and very stoic and very unrealistic, and there's like no life in it. At least there's banter in the other ones, good or bad.
The Wing Commander and Double Dragon have like these little details that you can pick up. Like Wing Commander has the pilgrims. They have these little locket things on them that they had because they're like religious or whatever. And then there's these old school looking projector maps, like someone would have sailing the seas, but they have them in space. Like there's some like design thought.
No, you're right. I would give them like a B for effort. Like they did try, and like Erin was saying, like put some love into it.
But Max Payne, like there's no little like nice little detail. Like even like the tattoos on these characters, they're all recycled. It's all the same like Valkyrie thing, and it's just a wing. It looks just so like that would be the moment, right, where you could like just add that little extra detail to it, and it's the tattoos look like shit. Like they don't have any kind of interest.
Actually, wait, I have another note about Max Payne I wanted to mention, which is that if you haven't seen Dredd, the like Alex Garland's Judge Dredd remake, it's actually surprisingly good.
It's really good.
Yeah,
and
good.
The Sylvester Stallone one?
No,
the new one.
Carl Urban, actually.
2013.
Oh, okay.
The 3D one.
Yeah, and actually, so in it, there's this drug, I think, called slow-mo, where it changes your perception of time and makes it like everything's in slow motion. And like, I totally thought Max Payne was going in that same direction, and he was gonna, when he like takes the drug, that then he was gonna be like, time was gonna be slowed down for him, and then it was gonna be like the game where he's like jumping through the air and shooting people. And I can't believe they didn't do that. I mean, I can only think it must have been a budget issue or something.
It's weird, yeah.
But
they shot it like a regular action scene afterwards. It was unbelievable. Like
what was the superpower that he got from that drug?
Tripping balls and killing people. Like that's it.
Like you have this moment that's supposed to be, and there should have been some drama to that because like at least in Doom you had a sense of significance when Reaper's about to take the magic drug, where this could turn him into a super badass, or it could turn him into a psycho or kill him or whatever. You have a sense of like there's something at stake when he takes this, and there should have been on paper in Max Payne as well, because they also have exactly the same thing, which isn't cliche at all, where they're trying to create a super soldier with the drug, but most people don't turn out right, and so they like whatever the percentage is, the overwhelming majority don't take to the drug, and they go psycho. It's not even clear to me which of those was Max Payne. Like, did he become awesome, or did he become psycho?
That should be so really, obvious.
Just like...
And also, why the fuck are people just taking this on the street? That makes no sense.
No.
Like it was so clear that this was written by someone who'd never taken drugs recreationally.
I so hope that Dave has to like interrupt now to do a read for that new movie on Netflix about powers, where people take like these pills that gives them powers that they don't even know what it's going to be. While you're like, crapping on the concept.
Well, no, I mean, did they? It seemed like they were taking, like in the very first scene where people are taking this drug, like someone takes it and it's like heroin or whatever. They're just like, I take it because I like it. And then then we see like 5 people take it and just trip the fuck out in like horror demon stuff. No one would take that drug. No one would want to take that drug.
I feel like the drug dealer is just like, why would I carry this? People like the heroin. Why? I don't need to send them mystery.
When the sexy Russian girl takes it, it's like, ooh, sexy drug. It's like being on heroin or ecstasy, where she's all breathy sexual sighs. And then the next thing you know, somebody else takes it, and it's like, actually, there are demons trying to tear my scalp off. So it's definitely totally the same drug.
So, I think we should start wrapping this up. Blake, any final thoughts on this whole experience?
I'm just stunned that they would get Timothy Olyphant and without the hair. Like you don't cast Pam Anderson for a shoulders up movie. Like it is he's a very handsome man. And
it's an interesting analogy.
Well, not to say that she's not a very thoughtful woman, but if you're going to pay top dollar, you want to get the whole package. So
it was actually kind of interesting in my research. The reason that he's bald in the game is because they couldn't get the hair to look right, and you're looking at the back of his head for the whole game, and so they're like, "Fuck it, we're just gonna make him bald."
And there's like a lot of good bald actors out there. Like maybe that would have been a better place to begin. My final thought is, I also think it's interesting that they would have a game developer involved in Wing Commander. Like, I feel like I wonder what the developers think of these movies, or if them being around would be helpful. Maybe I'm just giving a lot too much credit to like Carmack or Romero in my estimation of like, I feel like if they were involved with Doom, it would have at least felt more like Doom, even if it wasn't still not good. And there's something of the essence that seems to have gotten lost in the translation with most of these movies.
Yeah, well, and it's not just incidental stuff either. It's basically the whole point of all of these movies pretty much got lost in translation, so yeah, I don't know if there's a solution to that or not. Obviously having Chris Roberts direct the movie doesn't seem to have helped really. But Zach, final thought.
I guess, just my final thoughts is like moving forward, I am curious to watch movies that are maybe a little bit older that were initially really panned by critics, and just kind of like maybe discover something cool, because I feel like that's what happened here. But yeah, but then there's like a time frame where you can definitely trust the critics, right? So like anything after maybe 2001 or something, like all those movies, it's accurate. I actually think that for Doom and Max Payne, that they're being, I can't believe Doom almost has 20%. It's really bad. Just technically it's awful. So I don't know, like maybe I want to look back on some older movies that were just trashed and see if I find a gem. That's where my head's at now.
That's an optimistic takeaway. I like that.
Maybe I'm just desensitized. I watched so much of this garbage and then, saw a movie that I kind of enjoyed, so I'm just ecstatic about it. I don't know.
Actually, on our Facebook page, Leslie Lewis says, watch the Bollywood Doom trilogy instead. This is Doom, DHOOM. Spies, dancing, romance, cops, multiple costume changes. I don't know.
That could be rad. Did you guys see
selling it to me?
There was a thing going around Twitter for a while that was a snippet from a Bollywood movie where these guys got catapulted over castle walls. I don't know what movie that was from. God damn, it was awesome. I wanted to see the whole thing. It was just, again, like not even attempting to be serious at all. And it's just these catapults. I think were there palm trees? Were they using palm trees as catapults?
I've seen that.
To fling themselves over the castle walls, and they all land perfectly on their feet, and they like do the sparkly close-up. Oh, it was just so rad. I wanted to see the movie. I should have checked when it was still there. I'll never find it now.
All right, Erin, final thought.
I guess my final thought on this is, in a perverse kind of way, this experience taught me a little bit more about storytelling, like in kind of racking my brain about why these things worked or why they didn't, mostly why they didn't. It sort of convinced me of some theories that I've been working on in the back of my brain about what makes for good storytelling and what makes for immersive content. And, the skeletons of these things, by and large, there's nothing wrong with them, but just as the skeleton of a human being tells you very little about what they're going to look like, it's in the details where all the beauty comes. It's in actually rendering it. All this sort of, all that little stuff in between that actually to some extent Wing Commander and Double Dragon got right. I don't think it's any accident that those are the ones that stuck out, even though maybe the bone structure wasn't there as much in Wing Commander in particular. To me, it just makes me want to emphasize different things when I'm plotting, in terms of maybe not obsessing so much about the big plot points and obsessing much more about the sort of in-between spaces where all the magic happens.
That's a really good point.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And also, like, the characters can't be annoying for the whole movie.
At least not all of them, yeah.
You need to make it needs to turn a corner where we start to like them or care, at least care about them. And that's not just a problem with these under 20% movies. This is a problem that extends way, way beyond that. But I think that's a topic for another day, because we're going to have to wrap this up there. So we've been speaking with Erin Lindsey, Zach Chapman, and Blake J. Harris. So thanks everyone so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.
And that was our panel. So big thanks again to Erin Lindsey, Zach Chapman, and Blake J. Harris for joining us on the show. And remember that Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoy the show and want it to continue, please sign up to give us $1 or $2 per episode over at patreon.com/geeks. And if you'd rather make a one-time contribution, you can do that via check or PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. So big thanks again to everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate it. All right, so that was our show. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is a production of Wired.com. For more information about the show, visit geeksguideshow.com. To learn more about your host, visit davidbarrkirtley.com. Music and voiceover produced by yours truly, Jack Kincaid. If you enjoyed this program, tell your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, tell no one. Thank you for listening.